Yeah.
Greetings, everyone.
Hey, hi Taylor.
Welcome to our final episode of Gray Pages, Season 1.
Johnny Dangler, a little leprechaun from Iceland.
Or were there some leprechauns in Iceland? Homie just
Bro,
got
yeah,
back.
I brought one back for Cheryl, a little thing to put underneath our pine tree where
I
we
heard, I
all
heard you did a cold plunge.
I did a cold plunge, total Viking style in a one of the millions of Viking mountain streams that come down. We took all of our clothes off,
I'm
me
so
and another
jealous.
man, and we got underneath this waterfall.
Sounds
And
Sounds
I
amazing.
didn't
icy.
like it. I'll be
Sounds
honest with
Nordic.
you. But when we got done, you're not cold at all, bro. I see how they survive. They just, you do acclimate
Did
to.
it work? How'd your body?
I felt great. I didn't take a
Well,
shower for 7 days
so
because we got off the plane. We go 6 hour drive. We found a hot pot, which is a hot mountain thing you sit in, and it made my skin feel like I had been going through a man petty or something. Like felt so great for 3 days. I didn't even take a shower. And then we did the cold plunge on day 4. No need for a shower after that for 2 more days. Got on
so
the plane,
speaking of that, we want to thank one of our sponsors, Cold Plunge,
cold plunge.
for no,
Good segue into our sponsor.
that's actually not one of our sponsors.
We're on our final episode of season 1, aren't we, John?
Yep. Yep. We're
How
gonna
many
bring it
how
to a
many
close here.
episodes did
Pause
we
for a bit.
do?
So this I believe, as we release it, we have a few more coming out. This will be episode, I believe, 27.
Wow.
Pretty good run. So we started releasing these in December last year, so December of 23. But I went back and I looked. I think our first, like, we started recording conversations in May of 23.
Yep.
I know you guys were still like actively working on the book, and we started having these conversations. We started recording them, and then started releasing them in about December.
You know, a lot of great TV shows don't make it that long.
It's a great point. And some of those early ones are rough, but we actually enjoyed the conversation so much we thought, let's just go ahead, and hopefully people have been kind of with us to this point are seeing a little bit of quality increase. I'm not sure if it will ever get any better.
Maybe
We're
not
trying. We're
content,
trying.
but the quality's
Yeah, the
gotten
quality
better.
is getting better. But anyway, so what we decided is to basically take about that same amount of episodes every year and just put them into a volume. We'll just probably call it Gray Pages Volume 1. And then over the summer, we're going to put those actually into a written piece, just like the book would be. So those of you that want the content from what we've been saying, we actually want the content from what has been said because it's been really good from all the guests that we've had. So we're just going to create little booklets of the content. And so it gives us time to do that. And then we also have on this first year, we had a fantastic sponsor, Rewire You. Some of you
So
guys
good.
might have caught that podcast with JD Ward, but they essentially do a fantastic job doing spiritual formation training for any organization. So especially those that work more in impoverished areas. JD did a fantastic uh, really story of his life and what led them to that. And they wanted to jump in with us. It was a really great partnership. And so we just want to thank Rewire and
Yep.
Rewire You for being our year one sponsor. It helps us put a little time into providing this content. And if those of you that may have missed that, go to rewireteam.org and click on Rewire You. You'll see all sorts of offerings that they have.
And by the time you hear this, you will have heard our interview with JD,
Yep.
which
It'll be
was
the
actually,
episode right before this one. Yep.
yeah, was actually fantastic. We hit on a few things that made me realize that we got to go deeper with JD. So we're already booking him for season 2.
Yeah, he'll definitely be back. That I wasn't there for that conversation, but I did listen in. And that very end of that, Taylor, you really lit up and getting into some of the Gerard stuff and like, oh, we're definitely. It sounds like we'll definitely
Yeah,
have a round 2,
ego
and I will make
death.
sure I'm there
Yeah,
for that.
yeah,
That's where you guys lost me.
yeah. It was good. So this is really just a wrap up, right?
Yeah. So what I wanted to do today is really just, it's going to be a short episode. We really just want to wrap up the season. I had a couple questions for you guys about this process. And then I thought it'd be cool just to kind of reflect a little bit on what we've done so far. But I mentioned earlier, like we started recording these back a year ago and you guys were actively working on the book at that time. And I guess like I guess the question I have for you is how much do you feel like those early conversations or these conversations really impacted the book itself?
Oh, yeah. I mean, in every way. Like I actually think the book happened because Taylor and I were just talking all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and we realized what we were processing um, was probably going to be information that people were like desperate to find if they were doing the work that we were doing. So we were starting to find people all over the world that were doing brave city activity, but very few had language. Most of them didn't even know how to communicate what they were doing with their actual team that was doing it with them.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, it's true. I always be like, yeah, we
we
do
would
some
have
stuff.
conversations. They would be like, "Oh yeah, oh yeah." So like you just realize if you're doing this type of brave city work, you're running into the same problems, the same opportunities, the
Mm-hmm.
same nuance issues. So that's what got us thinking, man, we've got to do that. In fact, the book we said let's just do more of a framing document. Um, but the all the conversations that we have had this season one we think is better content than the book, honestly, because it's what you'll really run into along the way. So we hope it keeps going like that.
Yeah, and I think if anything, if we're what we're trying to be artists at in these conversations is authenticity. We come in, uh, preparation is an interesting idea because you can, of course, prepare very systematically, kind of bullet out your topic for that day and what you're going to go through. You can have all of your scripture references ready. You can have all of your author references ready. But what we decided to do was to create a space where we could speak freely and make a lot of mistakes, share our heart. And our preparation is really the work all week. So
Mm-hmm.
we work all week, we do what we do. And then we come in on Friday and we let that work and we let that obsession and we let our relationships drive these conversations as authentic as possible. And I was thinking about how intricate, so see if this makes sense, how intricate the gray pages conversations were in the formation of like the final edit of the book, but also how formational the book effort were in the gray pages conversations,
Yep, that's right.
because, well, we wanted something to hand to people to say, look, this will kind of let you know if you want to track with us at all, relationally, friendship, spending time together. We know most people would want to hang with us. We're good hangs. But when it comes to like how we feel about the kingdom, about Jesus, the story that God's been telling for all of human history, um, we know that there are some dividing lines in Christendom and in Christianity. We don't really love them. We never want to be known for what we're against, even though sometimes we slip into that space. It's hard not to.
It is.
But we also don't want to spend the rest of our life trying to explain and defend what we've landed on.
Yep.
After a quarter century of working, thinking, writing, and walking with God. Usually after that amount of time, you kind of you set into something.
Yep.
You'll always adapt, you'll always adjust, but typically if you're an honest person with yourself, if you're not doing what you do for money, if you're not doing what you do for clout or fame, you're going to land on something that's honest, and then you start working on it. Like I feel like that season has really come into fruition for me. John, I think you've probably been there a little longer than me, but you find it and you go, look, this is honestly who I am and how I
Mm-hmm.
feel and what I believe. So here's a document that sort of lays it out. Doesn't mean I'm not going to change. It doesn't mean I'm not going to adjust certain things that I think. But if this grosses you out, or if this makes you think like I'm so far from how these guys think, that's probably a good thing, because chances are we're both a little right, we're both a little wrong, and you might need to walk in your lane and us in ours. But if there's a camaraderie in spirit, in thought, in work, even if it's small, then we want to work together. And we want to talk those things out. So these are the manifestation of that effort of like, man, things we wrote, like Babylon, for instance, is not a commonly used term unless you're a sci-fi nerd. So people have a lot of questions about Babylon. Now we can point them to episode 21 and 22, I think, maybe
Yeah,
22.
we've been 22, 23, I think.
Yeah.
We've been getting a lot of good that building in Babylon, actually, when you were talking about preparation, that's like one episode we actually did talk a little bit ahead of time. I was like, I'll bring my notes on so I could tell that story. There was a
Yep.
little more prep for a setup, but then we just like navigated. But we've been getting, I think that one is one that a lot of people have seemed to be grateful for. Even today getting comments on it, like, yeah, it's definitely resonated and something that I think we're going to have to continue to flesh out and come back to for sure.
Yeah, I had a guy come up to me in the restaurant today and say, hey, I feel like that was the kind of the defining conversation for
Yeah.
what you guys are working towards.
There's a real
So
aha moment, I think, for
yeah, yeah,
folks.
yeah.
And it
And
felt that, I mean, honestly, if you remember, Hugh, you even said in the beginning of that episode, like, I'm along for the ride. Then Taylor said, I think 13 people will care about this conversation. And then at the end, Hugh, of course, it might have been Blanton's, but by the end of it, Hugh goes, I think this is the best one we've done. I think
yeah,
this is important. And
yeah.
I think that was true. Well, one of the questions I had for you was are there any particular conversations that stand out as significant? So I think we are answering that a little bit now. I am curious if others stand out to you as ones that
Ah,
felt
you answer
significant or
that.
special.
No, I mean, I just actually was writing down like what I sense we hit on this first year. They're like I like the ones where we hit on the spiritual warfare stuff,
Mm-hmm.
honestly.
The powers.
Yeah, a lot of times when you're in the church or church planting world or whatever, nobody really talks about like that's the whole thing. Like we're in a fight for
Mm-hmm.
something. We think that we're going to find some methods and we're just going to like roll right through life and succeed. I love that we got into that. I loved when we got into more practical issues as well. We definitely got into some community issues, some issues of church, and some business issues a little bit. I'm kind of hoping this next season we angle a little bit more towards the real personal, like even marriage issues, parenting. Like when you're doing this
Mm.
as a lifestyle, I would love it if we kind of find our way a little bit deeper there because I get a lot of questions about that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I mean, just looked back, episode 11 might have been one of the more significant. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we actually ended up changing the subtitle of our book because of that episode.
yeah,
Yep.
That's the archaeology, artists, and architecture episode, and
yeah,
that's one of my favorites because it's similar. There's a consistency in many of them where we're showing our cards that we're working this out in real time
Mm-hmm.
every day, and this journey kind of feels like that. I think that one of our greatest killers in our effort, in our Jesus kingdom effort, is this idea of certainty.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
And look, even we can flesh this out a little bit, but I just want to say it in this episode now, like certainty, it's such an ethereal concept, like it's such an elusive concept. We can't be certain next week
yeah,
per se, about something we were certain this week. Contextually, we're always kind of moving and shaping. Lindsay and I were talking just the other day about how the power that we call the zeitgeist, the spirit of the age,
Yep.
tends to mimic or counterfeit the spirit of God and what he's doing just prior. Does that make sense?
Mm.
Does what I just said make sense?
Well,
yeah.
you could say a bit more.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I could give examples, but I don't want to go down the rabbit hole too much. But especially in forms of justice, in movements, justice movements, what the zeitgeist likes to do is take the movement and counterfeit it. But he adds different ingredients. He'll add a little hatred. He'll add a little envy. He'll add a little tribalism. He'll add certain ingredients that don't exist in the kingdom, and then he'll counterfeit it. He'll
like a pure justice movement heart, and then maybe a co-opted
a co-opted
Black Lives Matter, some group, maybe that just takes over, literally comes in,
right,
takes over a beautiful, pure thing. Not saying that that's what that group did, but many in that group.
That's right.
Even say we got co-opted.
There'll be a perversion of it. And then here's my point. So don't get lost in that point. That's a really important conversation. But my point is, so then what we believe shifts a bit. Not the grounding truths, the grounding kind of canon of our faith movement, but even how we are sure about certain ideas can adjust and can adapt based on what's moving in our culture. So I want you to respond to that really quickly, John, but I just wanted to say, like, having honest and real-time conversations might be one of the most prophetic things that's happening in our culture right now. And I want to see more people doing it. And I want to see less people acting like they're certain about things.
Well, so a lot of stuff comes to mind, but by the way, everything you're saying is why we called this Gray Pages, right? Where we said it was a play on like white papers, where people have like findings, conclusions, like something almost to be stated, or like something like as close to certainty as can be. And we're like, well, we're not sure anything we're saying is right. We're meandering and searching and seeking together, sniffing around together, you know, praying for kingdom and wherever we are. And so we're like, oh, let's call it gray, because that is the posture of the entire thing. And one of the things that you're saying, like apart from just like the statements that we're making in different times and places, I mean, I could just think of like in certain settings as a leader in community where, let's say, if everyone is freaking out about something, let's just say it's like, I don't know, in your house or whatever, everyone's freaking out. Probably a leader will be a presence of calm and stability in that setting, right? But let's say in the same place with the same community at another time, everyone is just fine. And a leader probably is one that's going to stir the pot a little bit, to bring up something uncomfortable, to move us a little bit toward, they're always playing a role of like.
That's right. So real quick, my point is just that
I know
you can't be certain what a leader does. To say a leader is calm in anxious moments. Well,
yeah,
potentially.
potentially.
There's so much nuance there. A buddy of mine actually sent me and my wife a message yesterday and said, "Can you help me understand?" This is a young friend who's probably 10 to 15 years younger than me, and he just said, "Taylor and Lindsay, can you guys have been leaders for as long as I've known you. Can you help me understand? Give me your idea of leadership." And I mean, it's just, how do I even, one thing I did is I gave him a link to our podcast, and I was like, "Hey, just watch this and kind of see where we go." But I actually sent him a quote, or I sent him a video from Kobe Bryant saying leadership is lonely. That's my response to you. Like, that's the only certain thing I have for you, is a lot of times that leadership is lonely. I just think when you live a life of uncertainty, but of faith,
Yeah.
you choose to live at times a very lonely experience, but you have people that walk in that experience with you.
Yeah, I think in the conversation with Desi and Neil, I said, like, and maybe I've said it other times, but like that the Christian kind of life can't be prescribed but only described, right? So you can go, here's what I saw happen in this certain setting or whatever, because there is a necessity like of real time application of kingdom or faith in the now, in the moment, right? So it's like we're responding to the existential cries of the communities that we're in or the conditions that we find ourselves in, and there is no prescription for any of those situations. We have to, like, in with bravery and in faith, kind of like try to embody those as best we can
Yeah.
in that place.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. We talked about this in one of our episodes of the rich man coming to Jesus and him saying, how do you inherit eternal life? And Jesus saying, sell all your possessions. First, he said, keep the commandments. And I just think of someone kind of leaning over to Jesus and saying, are you sure that that's right? You know, like there's not a lot of room for certainty in this journey. So that's kind of my expositional thought this morning on why are we doing this as we wrap up season 1. Like, we're really trying to model whatever that's called, whatever that effort. I would call it authenticity, like
Yeah.
honest uncertainty.
And it was timely. Most of the times that we just started talking, it was what we were actually dealing with that
Yep.
week. So that's why I think we can go volume 30, because you better find us all with some wet mud on our boots
Still in the game.
forever. So yeah.
I want to ask you guys a question. We had a bunch of guests on throughout the season. Lance Linderman, David Fitch, Rodney, Eastside Chuck. I'm not going to name them all, but like, and I noticed as we had them, there's like, this is like someone on our team. This is someone near us. This is like the guest thing is an interesting dynamic. I'm curious how you think about these, because there's like this weird, like it's like this blurry, like they're across the country, but they're with us, they're on our team, they're in our community. It feels like a lot of the people we've talked to have been like, they feel like part of a family. I'm just curious, like how you've thought about selecting guests and who we've talked
Yeah,
to.
like
And
for me, it's always like who you would let into your house to have dinner with your kids. Like, I would never want to just bring a bad hang into my family, and blow a good night. So, the people that, like, I think we love them. Like, we actually believe in what they do. There's a lot of natural synergy. They're not all doing what we're doing. Some are theologians, some were, more business practitioners, whatever it was. But I think we picked that first crew because they were people we enjoyed being with, and we knew that what they would have to say would actually deepen what we're all experiencing.
Yeah.
I don't think we're ever going to just pick rando interviewers.
I like what you said. I would say it in a another way, or a different way, is these are people that I would want my kids to see their life.
Yeah.
I would want to go, hey, go spend the week with
Totally.
with Fitch. He probably wouldn't want all of
No,
them.
he wouldn't want any.
He's good.
But go spend the week with Chuck in San Antonio and just watch his life. And so when we're inspired by people, we like to just say they're on our team.
Yeah. Yeah.
It makes us seem more legit, and then they're
Okay.
kind of
Okay.
locked in.
Yeah. I was like, like we're in this together, and it's not untrue.
Yeah.
If we ever found somebody that actually really critiqued us in a good way that we thought would be helpful, I think we would probably enjoy that conversation, even let our listeners into that. Because we critique ourselves a lot. We critique so I don't think we'll always just find people that we know love us and we love them, but we're
No,
certainly going
yeah,
to
for
start the
sure. Would
first
love to
season
have.
that way.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think
Yeah,
that's
we
absolutely
got we
right.
got some good off-camera critiques from a lot of our guests.
Yeah, but they were all wrong, I thought.
Yeah, always. Well, that's the thing, is we should have had them on camera because
And
we
he is
proved them
certain
all
about
wrong.
that.
I remember one dinner in particular we had, because some people would come in and we'd have dinner the night before, and there were some phenomenal, like, maybe see it this way, and maybe
we got sharpened.
yeah. And that's the thing, is what we've realized is, if we were to sit down today and have a long form conversation with two guys in their early 30s. I think of these two guys that were at our exponential breakout session. Two guys in their early 30s that are planting a a traditional church that's completely funded on a 10% tithe from their congregants. They want 3 songs and a sermon, and they want to reach people through that context. I think we, us three, could have a phenomenal conversation about ways we can help each other, work together, push towards something real. So it there's not a lot of that's what the table, the social set theory, the stewards, the workers, and the seekers, this kingdom ecosystem, that's the banner over it all. That's what is so beautiful about it, is the robustness that it covers within the kingdom work. What we're saying is we would like for, someone commented on our book or critiqued our book, and I actually thought it was a fantastic critique. And he gave us a great review. But one thing he said is, I'm afraid that these guys think their model might be the right way. And I thought to myself, wow, I mean, he really missed one of the primary cornerstones of this book, which was it's not a model. We're not building a model. We are saying we're inviting people into a fully integrated life of kingdom manifestation, of kingdom outworking. And so everything is kind of welcome in that. What's not welcome, it seems, is to say this is the only way or this is the best way.
So this is something I've thought about for a long time, because I think, like, I would caution, let's say, well, anyone, but let's say I'm just talking to someone and be like, and I just, as you were talking about before, I'd be like, hey, be very careful about certainty. Like, there's very, very little, right? That, I mean, even in like empirical scientific method stuff, like the whole thing is based on undermining those things. That's why everything's called a theory. Like we're that's like what they call like systemic doubt. Like you're trying to like, or so okay, so
We're
be
still
very
learning.
be
Yep.
very careful about certainty, and don't let your, but I would also say that you want to speak, like when you like, I would say you also want to speak with conviction. And
Yeah.
those are different things, right? But I
Yes,
think
indeed.
sometimes they land similarly. Like when I say something with conviction, it could land like I intend that, but it might come off as a
Certain.
certainty, right?
Yep.
And I want to be careful not to let my confidence in something that I do have some chops in outpace my competence, like the thing that I actually know how to do. And that's a dance
So
that we're
good.
doing, right? So it's like I want to speak with conviction. I
Okay,
want to have
hold
some
on.
confidence. Yep.
So what I love this. What is there's a fine line between throughout most of Paul's writings, he talks about persuading people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he uses the word persuade often, and that's the actual translation of the word he uses in the Greek is persuade. So you've heard it said there's a fine line between persuasion and manipulation, right? How would you distinguish that line? Just basic, simple principle.
Me.
Yeah, sure.
Influence.
Okay.
Motive.
Motive.
You generally only manipulate those you're trying to get to do what you want to do because it benefits you for
Yep.
something.
I would say both of those right. I would say you look at the whole story. You look at their life. You say this all the time. Look at what do you
The
say?
body of work.
Look at the body of work and see what is their
What's been the you look in the basket of fruit. Is it mostly good fruit? Never
yep.
going to be perfectly.
Okay, so take what you said. There's a fine line, and I think a very fine line between certainty and conviction. What's the determining factor then? How do we even know? And to me, you look at the body of work. Let's just take you, John. You look at the body of work of John's life. Is John quick to adjust, to adapt, to think, to reconsider almost any position? And I would say, having known him for 10 plus years, having known Hugh for about the same, yes. So
Great.
this is what we're trying to flesh out, is a life of conviction that holds things like certainty loosely. We're
Holds
not we
everything loosely, right? It's like
Yeah.
in as long as it's like you lean into it, in as long as that thing is like got a grip on you or feels like right or faithful or in line with the kingdom or the dream. And yet the second it's like illuminated that it's not, it's like we've got to be able to pivot or leave that thing behind or lay that down, because it any of these positions are not actually ultimate. They're
By the way, that's different though. Like our lack of certainty doesn't keep us from moving.
That's
And
right.
for many people, people that are even listening to this, they're trying to get enough ammo to go, okay, I'll finally make the jump. I do hope that people did catch the whimsy and the adventure of
Mm-hmm.
kind of, we don't know for sure. Like literally, even in our community in Alton right now, so much is in flux. We could look completely different literally in 2 months based on some things that are going on. And it may not happen at all. And so there's no certainty for us locally, but we're all working our butts off still. And we hope that
It's
people
good.
finally go, look, let's do some. By the way, I can fix all this stuff for you guys as usual. I'm letting you two youngsters just
Love it.
talk, but I think we should entitle this final chapter or final session. No, I had it. Never mind, it's gone. It's certainty. We're certain that we said some things that will be helpful to you, and we're also certain.
Hold on, do you got it? Did you get it back?
Yeah, I'm giving it to you right now.
Okay.
But somehow you reframe it. But we are certain that we learned a lot together. We're certain that we said some things that'll be helpful, but we're also certain that we didn't get it all right. Certainty.
Which everything you just said sounds like uncertainty.
So let's call it certainty, persuasion. I don't know. I thought I had it.
Keep thinking, because I think this ties in. You know that time, you know that story where Jesus is talking to, I think, his disciples, and he says, "Foxes have holes, birds of the air have, what is it, nests,
Nests.
but the Son of
The
Man
son
has
of man
no
has
place
nowhere to
to."
lay his head. Yeah.
Y'all might have done this before. If you have, no offense, but there's this like common little kind of quib when people talk about that Jesus was homeless, which I think is a silly conclusion. When Jesus was sharing that statement, he was sharing it a few blocks from his mom's house. Like he could have gone home anytime he wanted. He had 12 to 15 friends around him with homes that they could have just gone and crashed there.
Yeah. Who wouldn't have put up Jesus?
Yeah, that's right. But what Jesus was saying is, I'm inviting you into a life of uncertainty.
Yeah.
Foxes have holes. That's their kind of stable certainty. Birds of the air have nests. So when I think about my own kids, I think, man, at its base level, guys, I want them to live a life of adventure. I don't want them to be certain. I don't want them to get into this. I'm going to use a tired picture. So forgive me, listeners, for using the same one we've used before, but I don't want them to get into this neighborhood where everything is stable in this perfect, 40-hour a week job with a 401k, that everything is just right on point. If it happens, praise God. I'm with them. Maybe God led them in that place. So we're not trying to poo-poo on that right now. What I'm trying to say is that moment when Jesus ex exposed that to those who wanted to follow him, he's exposing like, I'm inviting you into instability here and stability in me. Like foundation in me, that I'm with you. I will never leave or forsake you. But what you're walking in, I can't tell. And I think that adventure just makes God, mouth water. Like he loves the thought of his sons and daughters walking into something where they have to trust him and not know what's next.
On
Driving here
pilgrimage.
or I'm driving out of my place and I pass my daughter on our little country road and we always stop, say hi, whatever. Windows go down and Allie goes, Dad, I got another idea. And then she just lays this big real estate dream on me about some other, I'll share it with you later. And I just looked at her, I was like, you're wearing me out, but I like it. And
Well,
I
it's
know
your
it's like, it's
fault.
kind of like a high five, like we'll talk about it, we'll get, but I love that. Like,
You did it.
I know, but now she's doing it. I
That's
just
awesome.
like that, like that constant, like, let's just go. So
Yep.
as we finish season one, I mean, let's just call it that we just hope you guys keep going. Try not to be a looky-loo for too long. Don't try to get so much certainty in the method that you'll finally make a jump. Hopefully something of our story or those that we had on was enough to get you moving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And yeah, can't wait for season two. We'll start them up late summer, somewhere in there.
And we will be working hard this summer to actually put this into a volume,
Yep.
A written volume that can be available for everyone.
And speaking of that work, by the way, if someone's listening that is, let's say, particularly gifted as like editor, copywriter, graphic artist, like and by the way, doesn't need a big fat paycheck, but wants to like just help as a contribution or labor of love to that work, that is a lot of work that all of us are kind of like, oof. Uh, so
Yes.
so
And
there
we
is an
can
open
tell
invitation if you want to reach out.
you could make a lot of money from doing this, but you can't be certain.
Hey,
um,
final
yep.
we think about season two. We're gonna be looking for maybe a next sponsor. And so if any of you are listening, you think that what God's asked you to do lines up with what we're doing.
Yep.
We will be taking I don't think we take applications because we don't do paperwork.
We reached out to Hennessy and
We're open to have a chat.
Jason Work Boots.
Yeah, just get a hold of us if you think you'd like to go season two. Basically, you'll have your brand and your work on the actual volumes that we produce, and that will be into infinity and beyond. So we think it's a good partnership on both sides. So
Yep.
Well, and
get a
as we
hold.
wrap up season one, thank you, Rewire. And
Yep.
go guys, remember, go visit them, rewireteam.org. They've got some incredible
Yep.
courses and services that you can take advantage of, and we're just grateful for their partnership.
Yep.
Awesome.
Hey, by the way, great job hosting,
Yeah, you were
Dr.
fantastic, bro.
Dangler.
Mm-hmm.
You're really good at this. I don't think we could have pulled this off without you.
I think you should only wear the black hat on the first episode and the last of every season. It's
This
kind of
one,
like the
yeah,
Tiger Woods wearing his red shirt on the final day. I think it's a special hat. So
awesome.
put it on the shelf till we get started again.
Well, it's been fun, and anyway, we will keep pushing forward. Let's do some more. Thanks,
All right.
guys.
Peace out.
See ya.